You. Yes, you. The extraordinarily relatable you. You've taken the leap of faith and managed to face the camera. But it's time to get geeky. It's time to take your live streaming to the next level. And before you bring out your perfectly imperfect you on stage, you need a plan to tell the whole world about it. And after you bring out your live you on stage, you need a strategy so that you can be the center of attention all year round. After all, honey, you want all eyes on your live stream, don't you? Which is why for our next episode of Just Between You and Me, we have Ian Anderson Gray, an exclusive masterclass on how to repurpose and promote your live videos all year round. Join us live this Wednesday, 22nd July, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on invideo.io/you and me.
Steve Dotto here. How the heck you doing this fine day? And welcome to Just Between You and Me. I am looking forward to today's broadcast because we have the one and the only Ian Anderson Gray joining us. And if you've not visited with Ian Anderson Gray before, it is a treat. He knows his stuff around live streaming, and it's kind of meta. Us live streaming a show on live streaming, but we will do our best to not make it too weird. Well, actually, I'll try and make it weird. Ian will probably try and make it straight. Just a few administrative notes before we get into the meat of today's broadcast, and before I bring Ian on with me. If you're watching this on YouTube Live or on Facebook Live or any other live streaming platform, that's fine. It's absolutely fantastic. But we encourage you, wherever possible, to drop by our home base at invideo.io/you-and-me. That's invideo.io/you-and-me. If you visit us there, you can log in and you can engage in the chat with the entire team there. So that's kind of where we focus most of our chat. And also the bonus is that you can find all of our back episodes of Just Between You and Me here. If you find this one just fascinating and you need to binge watch the rest of our episodes, they are all there. We have some amazing guests, and frankly, I'm hoping Ian is up to the challenge. So without any further ado, let's bring on Ian Anderson Gray. Mr. Anderson Gray, are you up to it? You know, we've had like Mark Schaefer on, we've had Kim Garst on, we've had the heavy hitters on the show.
Are you trying to give me imposter syndrome, Steve? I'm ready for this. I'm ready to rock. As
are you? Are you? No pressure.
I am. The pressure is on.
Well, welcome. I'm thrilled to have you. You know, I relax. You know, a lot of guests I worry about, and I'm wondering just how the energy is going to be and how we're going to do. But I never worry with you, so that's a compliment. Yeah, I never worry.
Good. That's good.
I mainly never worry because I know you can't beat me up, even if I screw up with you.
Well, we'll see about that. I've been working out, as you know, Steve. So
I know you have.
You never know.
Yeah, and you're still doing it even through lockdown.
Yeah, so doing it via FaceTime twice a week with my personal trainer. That's going really well.
Good for you.
Well, at home.
That is good to know. So for those of you who don't know, Ian is a live streamer. He is a community leader. He teaches. He's got a. What's your podcast name now?
It's the Confident Live Marketing Podcast. I've even got the branding there.
That's right. And you do your podcast as a live stream, do you not?
I do. Yeah, I do it as a live stream, and then I repurpose it into a blog post and into a podcast. Yeah.
Well, that's a great place for us to start because it's, you know, one of the things about live streaming is you have to have a purpose for everything. And if you have a purpose for your live stream, it's not just, you're not just taking up space, but there has to be a message and a mission behind the live stream. And so and you have decided to incorporate and to create your podcast live. Farley, seriously, dude, it's Ian's moment, not yours. But when you decided that you were going to live stream, how did you decide what platform you would host on, or did you send it universally across all of the platforms? Because there are so many live streaming platforms, and I think I worry about dividing our attention too much between the different platforms. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, definitely. And so I think you need to. We're all in danger of overcomplicating it, and I'm very much like this. I like to overcomplicate things, but I wanted to keep it simple at the start. So for me, my audience was mainly on YouTube, on Facebook, sorry, and also it was the easiest place to go live to at the time. So I wanted to keep things simple, but I knew that pretty early on I also wanted to move on to YouTube as well. So my main platforms at the start were going to be Facebook and YouTube, and then maybe add in LinkedIn. Nowadays, and this is like a year and a bit later, now that I've got the confidence with the structure and the show, and I've been able to do a lot of the groundwork, I now go live to probably over 20 platforms, which I would not recommend doing right at the start. So keep it simple, and then over time you can build more, add more channels into it.
So you're building more channels. Well, let's talk about the value of each channel for people that aren't willing to like completely spread themselves thinner than a piece of paper across 20 platforms.
Yeah.
The main streaming platforms are, without question, YouTube Live, Facebook Live. Is Instagram Live reached them? You know, is it in the A list yet? Has it reached the A list?
So yes, it is, but except for you have to treat it slightly differently to the others because it's mobile only. You can't broadcast from your computer legitimately, at least, to Instagram Live. So we have to kind of talk about Instagram Live separately, if that makes sense.
Okay, so let's talk about
certainly those, and LinkedIn Live is definitely up there too.
So we try and create as much tactical information as we can within this live stream. So first of all, let's talk about the benefits of each of the platforms. Facebook Live's benefits are probably self-evident. You've got incredible viral reach. You've got great engagement. The conversations go on. People are really comfortable with the format. People will stumble across. What other strengths do you have to Facebook Live?
Yeah, the community aspect of it is amazing too. So you can really drive a lot of comments, and of course then once you've gone live, there's all the benefits afterwards, such as being able to promote them afterwards using ads. You can't promote a live beforehand or during, but you can afterwards. And then of course there's the whole world of messenger bots as well, which we could, in fact I think we'll talk about that
once you've tied it with people, you can carry on. So there's a lot. So when a live stream is looking at Facebook Live, there's the community aspects and the residual aspects of being able to promote. If you're willing to spend money, your content is paramount. What's the downside of streaming live on Facebook?
Well, it's a very flexible platform. It's still pretty robust, but it can be a little bit buggy sometimes. And then you're also at the mercy of the dreaded algorithm. Which you could say all the social networks have the algorithm. But if your Facebook page, if you're going live to your page, isn't doing that well in terms of the reach, and you're not really spending much time on it, then the likelihood of loads and loads of people seeing your lives is going to be less. Having said that, I still want to kind of be positive on this. The live videos still get more reach than some of the other posts out there. So compared to pre-recorded videos, sometimes it can be more depending on how good your page is. But yeah, that's the other thing you've got to think about.
So one of the things that I talk about a lot and teach is the power of intent. You don't just go live because you're bored and you're hoping to kind of reach out to people and have them entertain you. That there needs to be a purpose to your live stream. And if there's a purpose to your live stream, then what I like to do is we promote our live stream at least a day. We never go live. We never go, let's do a live stream today. We promote it, we schedule it, we email people, we let them know we're doing it, regardless of what platform it's on. And we treat it almost like a webinar, maybe not quite as significant because people don't have to register, obviously.
Yeah.
But we create it with intent because we want people to destination view as opposed to stumble across organically. Do you do that?
Yeah, definitely. And that's the other big advantage. So there's only two platforms, live video platforms, that you can truly schedule, as we say in the UK, to, and it's either Facebook or YouTube. So creating in advance a scheduled live Facebook Live is really important because they basically allow you to create that post beforehand, and people can get notified. They can comment already on that. And you can send that link. And this is the really exciting bit. You can send that link out to your email list and on social media, and you can create a bit of a buzz before you go live. And on Facebook, you can do this up to a week in advance. So it's definitely worth doing. And you can do all the stuff with messenger bots as well if you schedule your Facebook Lives.
And so we are an example of that. This show is an example of a Facebook Live and a YouTube Live, which is scheduled, or as you say, scheduled in advance, which then we then drive traffic to, we promote, and it gives us so people who this initial audience that's watching us is destination viewing. Now we do get the advantage of additional organic reach as it's on, as people stumble across it within their feed, and Facebook decides in their infinite wisdom whether or not we are shareable or not. But the bottom line is that planning with intent to create something. So let's talk about, before we leave Facebook, we'll go to YouTube strengths and weaknesses in a minute. Let's talk about the additional advantage. Do you ask? And I always wonder whether it's worth it or not. I believe that the kind of the best practices for us as live streamers is to ask everybody to share and like and comment on the live stream as it's happening, because that activity will tell Facebook that this is valuable content, and then Facebook will insert it organically into more people's feeds. Do you follow that rule?
Yeah, I think it's good to do that. I mean, technically, I haven't seen any evidence that Facebook does this, but they supposedly listen. They don't particularly want you to do that. They don't want you to ask for shares and likes, but do it anyway, because I think if you don't ask, people sometimes need reminding. So it's one of the first things I'll do at the start of my lives. I mean, there's a few things I do. I will always address my replay audience first, the people from the future, because they're the people that watch first.
This is with your podcast.
Sorry?
This is with your podcast.
No, this is with a live show.
Oh, live show, okay.
Yeah, so I will introduce who I am. I'll introduce the topic. I will say hello to my replay viewers, and then by that point, hopefully the live viewers will have started to join, and I'll say hello to them and introduce them. But yeah, I think but yeah, one of the things that I will say at the beginning is, please like and share this. Do get involved with the comments. It'd be great to hear from you. I always ask some very mundane questions like, where in the world are you from? And maybe some more silly questions like, what are you eating later on, or something like that. Just make it fun and make it easy for people to comment. And also think about mobile viewers as well. So like if you're asking people for their opinion, just tell them to write one word or one letter, so it's very, very easy for them to reply, because people aren't going to write essays on their mobile devices, are they?
Do you try and generate much interaction during your live stream? Do you try and create conversation with your community?
I do. Yeah, I definitely do. I think they're the best live broadcasts that I've done. I've had some issues. Facebook had a bug, which meant I went live and nobody saw it. So I was like 20 minutes in, no live viewers. I was thinking like, nobody loves me, but I kept going. But it was really hard to keep going because there wasn't that interaction there.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes they can ask questions and get involved, and that's really good. There's something really important though to mention though about comments, which we might kind of come on to this later on in terms of the ability to repurpose. But if you are looking to repurpose your live shows into a podcast, into blog posts, or into little snippets, then you've got to really think very carefully about the structure of your show. If you don't have a structure, it's going to be really difficult to then repurpose it for later. So you've got that beginning bit, then I'll get straight into my main subject. And it might be that I've got 3 or 4 points. And so what I'll do is I'll make my first point, then I'll go to the comments and see if I can answer any questions and talk about that. Then I'll go into point number 2, then the comments, and do it that way. And I always make sure that my live viewers know that I'm not ignoring them. I will get back to the comments. And then that makes it a lot easier then to repurpose for later, because sometimes the comments can work well in the podcast or a blog post or in other videos. Sometimes they don't. But if you do it that way, you can just cut them out a lot more easily. So
you do. So you
important.
actually edit out your live comments so that you're not creating the illusion that the podcast is live.
So
the replay's live, or what's the purpose of cutting them?
So, well, because sometimes they're not. Then depending on the comments, so I won't cut out all the comments, but some comments are a little bit. They're not so valuable for the replay audience or the repurposing.
So they're not on point.
They're not on point, but they're great for the live. So I will cut those bits out. I'll edit those bits out. But it's very easy to do, and of course you don't need to do that. It really depends on the kind of the vibe that you're wanting to do. But I just really, I think for my podcast listeners, I just want to make it as valuable as possible. And some of the comments just aren't on point, as you say.
So people who have followed both of us know that we're hardware geeks to the max. So I have to ask you, how do you record your podcast? Like what's your setup for recording and capturing the audio so you have good quality audio for the podcast?
Yeah, well, okay. Well, this is. I wouldn't recommend this for people who are getting started. I'm a big believer in bootstrapping your live video studio. So start small. I actually don't have it here, but I started with a Blue Yeti microphone, which is great. And then I've over the years I've upgraded things. So I'm using a Heil PR40 mic, beloved by podcasters. It goes into, you can't see this, but underneath here is something called a DBX 286S, which sounds a bit scary, but basically what that does is it gets rid of any background noise and makes it really my voice sound even better. And then that plugs into I've got an audio interface. It's the Scarlett 2i2, which takes the output of that into my computer. How I record the audio when I go live is I route the audio from my microphone and from the show into Adobe Audition. Because I'm on a Mac, I use software called Loopback, which takes my voice and my guest's voice and splits them into different channels. And that goes into Adobe Audition, which is the software I use to record my podcast. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend that for beginners, but that's the solution that I've worked.
So you have that running in parallel with your live streaming software. So you're not taking the audio feed from the live stream for your podcast, which would be a mixed one, but you're doing a mix minus. You're capturing your stream and your guest's stream separately.
Yeah, and so that's what I do using that setup. But the other thing that you could do is there are many services out there. So the one I could use is called TriCast. I'm still playing around with this, but basically what this does, you can have this running at the same time, and it records my guest's audio their end, and so they can then at the end of the broadcast they will then send. It gets automatically emailed to me as an MP3 file, and so I've got their audio.
So that's recorded locally, so you can have the best quality then.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Yeah,
so it's called TriCast.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to check that one out. Carrie, you made Carrie's head spin.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Carrie. You did ask before. You did ask Steve, but there we go.
It didn't make my head spin. But it's always because each one of us kind of MacGyvers our own system for capturing. And I mean, there's no right way of doing this. A lot of people do it successfully by hosting their live stream in Zoom, streaming out of Zoom, and then capturing the Zoom recording and using that as their podcast feed. But it's always, I think, better if you can split the tracks. That's going to be the best.
It definitely is, because sometimes like your guest might have a coughing fit in the background, or maybe the kids come in halfway through and your end, so you can cut those bits out so much more easily if you've got them as separate tracks. Yeah,
it was funny. I tried recording once a little while ago. I was doing a test in Zoom, and I was recording it locally, and I had a coughing fit, so I muted my mic while my guest was talking, and then I went to edit the podcast. I realized that it only muted it for him listening and not for the feed, and so I had this horrible coughing fit, and in that particular case it was into a mixed track, and I went, oh, that's gonna sting. So it's good to test these things out as you go along.
It is, but at least you were being authentic. There's the whole I mean, that's the whole thing with live video. It's authenticity. So there you go.
Well, I love the concept that you have of recording your podcast live and then repurposing it. I'm right now re-looking at my personal podcast, and I find that the energy of delivering it as when I do solo podcasts is I want that audience energy, and I like the idea of having, just knowing that you're live creates an additional oomph to it.
It does.
And I like the structure. And actually, Carrie mentioned that she follows the structure of yours, and she likes the structure. I like how you've thought out the format, and that's really important step in the entire live streaming process. Is how you're going to repurpose it.
And there's one other thing that I get really really passionate and excited about, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Well, okay, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Let's be positive about it. And
You're
I
in
find
relapse,
like
Ian. I know you're in relapse.
well, no, I'm not. Stop it. And what I find is that live video is a great antidote to perfectionism, because when you schedule your live, and like you scheduled a live for 7 p.m. tonight, and it's nearly 7 p.m. You're going to have to do it because you've told everyone about it. You have to press that go live button. And once you've done that, you created a piece of content really quickly and easily that you can then repurpose into all this other content. So it's a great way. So whether you know, for my podcast, I've been able to go live and produce a podcast and produce a blog post every single week for over a whole year. And for me, that is a massive deal, because I really struggled with that consistency before I did this. So that is a big advantage.
And you're building a relationship with your live audience. You're building trust with them. You're building confidence, and it creates social proof. One of the challenges, and we're going to sidebar a little bit here into the podcast world, into the repurpose world, because one of the big challenges that I have with a podcast, and I believe, well, we all do, is podcast is the only medium that we broadcast to that we don't have a platform, that we don't have a home for. So consequently, there's no place for people that have conversations with us, because podcast delivery platforms are everything. We can be on iTunes, we can be in Stitcher. Where does a person comment? Where do we have the engagement from somebody talking to us and giving us instant feedback, or even latent feedback as we would in YouTube comments or in Facebook comments? We don't get that feedback. So a lot of times when we create podcasts, we create them in a vacuum, and we hope that people like what we're saying. We see our podcast numbers, but that's a very lagging indicator of whether or not we're on point with our content. Whereas the way that you do it, by delivering it to a live audience, you're getting that instant social proof, that instant feedback on whether or not your content is landing solidly or landing with a thud. And you know whether or not, and it gives you the energy, and I'm sure the confidence to continue. Whereas insecurity, and we were talking about imposter syndrome earlier, it creeps in if not. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah, big time. I'm big time. I wasn't going to give up, but I could feel the signs coming, like in my head. Like this was like November last year, and I wasn't really getting any feedback from my podcast. The live show part was great, but the podcast part, I saw the numbers start to creep up, but I just was not getting anyone say anything about my podcast. And I knew this was the case. I knew this, and I thought to myself, I had to kind of like tell myself off and say, look, you're in this for the long game, because podcasting takes a long time for people to comment. And there's the other thing about podcasting that I think is true, in that it's even more of an intimate experience, because people are effectively plugging you into their ears, and the likelihood of them wanting to share that experience with other people is actually lower, because it's their experience. They don't want to tell anyone else about it. And it wasn't until I went to a conference in London in November that I suddenly bumped into all these people that were listening to my podcast. They'd never had said it to me, but I bumped into them and they said, "Oh, I love your podcast. It's great." And I was thinking, why didn't you just tell me this beforehand?
Tell me this before.
Exactly. But yeah, it's a very much more intimate experience. And so you've got
Here I am.
Yeah. We're all insecure at heart, probably, I think. Yeah.
Of course. Well, that's okay. So that's, as far as getting right down in the weeds of what makes, when people are thinking about creating their content and they're thinking about getting in that for the long haul, affirming that your content is valuable is so important. Live streaming is a way of affirming that content for a lot of your pre-recorded, a lot of your stuff that you're going to be having a long tail on. So I think that's a really valuable tactical way to look at it. And you don't just have to look at it for podcasting. You can look at it for other types of content, even testing out your blog content before you send it out by having a live stream and having that instant interaction. There's a lot of places that you can use this to validate your ideas. We've been talking a lot about Facebook, and we'll probably loop back because you've opened the murky waters of bots to me, and we'll return to that. I'm a huge fan of those. Let's talk about what the strengths are as opposed of YouTube Live as opposed to Facebook Live. Like, I like YouTube Live better. I like being on YouTube Live better. Why do I like that?
Well, you've got a massive community on YouTube. That's where your community is. So
But I like
this
it in
is
my smaller. I usually don't broadcast live to my big channel. I have a blog channel or a vlog channel, which has only like 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers. I still like doing it better there.
yeah, but your community is really they're a great community and they're engaged, and so when you look at a platform to go live to, that's got to be one of the things that you think about. Where are my audience? Where's the most engaged part of my audience? That might be, if you're massively on to Twitter, you might actually want to go live to Periscope. Periscope is not the biggest platform by any means at the moment, but you might want to think about that. So that's the first thing. So the other thing I love about YouTube is that once you've finished the broadcast, like Facebook, it becomes just like a regular pre-recorded video, that as if you've uploaded it. And so it's another way of creating consistent content to YouTube. Also, the other thing I love about YouTube is that the actual quality of the video is higher than most of the other platforms. So on Facebook, the maximum for most people is still 720p. That's not full high definition. But on YouTube, you can broadcast in HD. You can even do 4K if you really, really wanted, which you'd have to have a beast of a computer to do that. But the quality is a lot better too. And I think also I really like the moderation side of things with the comments.
I like how the comment, and plus the fact you can be paid for your comments. You can have super chat so people can drop you
That's
tip,
true.
which is quite
true.
nice. So here's one of the kind of in the weeds aspects of creating a live stream on YouTube and then repurposing it, because I always wonder about the replay value of a live stream as it sits as created. That so much of the value of a live stream comes from the community aspect of people all sharing this moment in real time with us. But with YouTube, you can leave the video as is without touching it and editing it. And if you do that, YouTube will leave all of the comments and they will stream through as though it is live. Now, you know that's not live. You know it's a replay, but you're getting all that extra social proof, and you're getting all the questions and answers, and you're getting all the engagement, which I think comes closer to recreating the experience of watching it live. I think Facebook does that too, to a certain extent, doesn't it? It'll actually show the comments as they happened in real time with the live stream. But I get confused. I get lost as to the new comments and the old comments sometimes. In YouTube, we don't have that. It just kind of flows through nicely.
Well, that's another important distinction. It's maybe a bit more of a technical one, but I think it's important to think about. So on Facebook, when you leave a comment on a live, it ends up being a comment underneath the video, just a regular comment. And I think you, as a viewer, you can tell the difference between a live what comment.
Because one will be time stamped. One will be time stamped to the video.
Exactly. Yeah. But YouTube is completely different, and I'd love to know what you think about this, Steve. I can see it from both angles. I kind of love this and I kind of hate it too. So when you leave a comment live, it's technically in the chat. It's in a chat window. Yes. And once the live is finished, you can no longer do anything in the chat. You leave a regular comment. So there are separate comments. You've got the comments in the chat, which is only for the live, and then you've got the comments underneath the video once it's finished. And
for the recorded video, yeah.
For the recorded video. And I kind of prefer Facebook's way in that all the comments, the live comments, become regular comments. But so YouTube has made the distinction between the two. And the other thing to bear in mind here is, if you want, you can trim the video on YouTube, so you can cut the beginning off or the end off. But the problem, if you do that, you lose the chat. You lose the chat.
You lose the chat replay. Yes, that's what I was saying. Is you can't edit it. You have to determine to leave it live. Yeah. And then you have to really watch your analytics to see if having those live streams in your channel, especially if you have a robust channel, hurts your subscription rate. Like, a lot of YouTubers will not leave their live streams up. They will live stream, and then 48 hours or even immediately afterwards, they will take that live stream down, because now YouTube looks at it as a recorded video, and people get it suggested in their suggested videos. And if people are following somebody like me who's teaching them, how to technology stuff, and all of a sudden there's this live stream which is not quite as on point for the content, they might it affects subscription rates. People go, I'm not interested in a live stream with Otto, unsubscribe. And once that happens a few times, it affects your overall health of your channel. So you have to be very aware as you use the technology, whether or not, just having content up there for content's sake isn't always the place you want to be. No. So I wish, along with you, I wish that YouTube would just take those comments and move them into the video comments and then make it all one. Wouldn't that be sweet?
It would be. It would be, definitely.
Yeah, but they do not do that. Okay, so the strengths of YouTube I think that the strength of YouTube, if we kind of go back, Facebook, I feel that we have solid engagement, but I don't think your length of engagement is as long. I think if people start watching your live stream on YouTube, they're more likely to stay longer. They're less likely to move off of your content onto other content because there's less. Yeah. There's less temptation.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and one other thing just to say about Facebook is there is still an advantage in you going live, and if somebody sees you go live and they might not actually click to watch the video, but they keep seeing you go live. Just the fact that they see you going live is just a reminder that you are there, that you exist, and maybe eventually they will watch you live, or they might actually just go to your website and book a call with you or buy one of your products. And from a brand awareness point of view, the fact that you're popping up live is a good thing on Facebook too.
Is there a decent, if somebody's starting out in live streaming, is there a value you believe in them focusing on a single channel to start and not dividing their stream amongst multiple channels as they go live?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. First of all, it's simple. I mean, you can multi-stream. There's some software now that allows you to do that more easily, but it's still much more complicated. I always say start very simply. Start doing it from your smartphone first, and then you can go over to your computer and start to build it over time. But don't overcomplicate it. And then it's also, even though you can multi-stream much more easily now, you're still trying to juggle the different audiences. So your audience on YouTube may be very different to your audience on Facebook and your audience on LinkedIn. So it is possible to do that, but I think to begin with, it's better just to focus on one channel and do that really well, and then over time add more and more and more. And that's certainly what I did, and I would recommend to pretty much anyone who's starting off.
Before we wrap up today, I'll make sure that we talk about what some of your different software options are for creating, for managing your live stream, because every platform has a native broadcast platform, but then we also have other tools that we use. For example, right now we're using a tool called StreamYard to multi-stream this to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different channels as well as to the website. Yeah. So there's options, but we will get to those. I don't want to kind of get off this theme, the more tactical theme, and we'll talk about the practical before we're done. So I promise you we'll get to that. When you look at your content roadmap, when you start working on your content calendar and you look at, because you don't just do live streams, you also publish videos, you also publish blog posts. How do you determine what's good content for, when you have an idea, what this is a good piece of content for live streaming, this and for my podcast, this is a blog post, this is a recorded video that I should create? How do you determine the different types of content and the proper platform to deliver it on?
That's a great question, and it's something we all need to be asking ourselves. So there's different ways we can look at this. I have for most of my live content, the content to do with live video and confident live, which is my main focus at the moment, is I have 3 main themes. So I think it's important to have a theme that have a number of themes that are aligned to your main focus. So my main focus is that I help entrepreneurs level up their impact and authority using confident live video. And there are 3 main barriers to that. There's the gear and the tech, there's the confidence and mindset, and then there's the content and marketing. So all the pieces of content that I create, whether that's my podcast, my live show, or blogs, it has to be to do with one of those themes. So that's the first thing, what's the angle? And then the other thing is, is to think, well, what kind of content is this? And when it comes to live video, there's a great acronym which my friend Sam Ashdown came up with called BLAST. And this is the different types of live streams that you can do. And this also works with other types of content. So the B for BLAST stands for behind the scenes stuff. So this is showing a little bit more about how you work and the human side of everything. L is for local. So this is your area, your local area, but it could also be about other businesses in your area. The A is for a day in the life. So what's a typical day like for you and how do you work? S is for sneak peek. I really love this one because this is something that you're working on, something new that you're working on that you want to share with your audience, and it's a piece of exclusive content. And then the final one is the one that I spend the most time on, and this is the T, and this stands for tips and advice. And this is the pillar content. This is the big main content on your blog or live streams. So that's the second kind of thing that you need to think about. And then probably the most important thing is, what are you actually wanting people to do with this? What's the point of this from a business perspective? It's not, you think you said earlier, it's not about producing content for content's sake. What are you wanting people to do? Is this awareness? Is this to do with letting people know that you exist, or is it to do with putting forward that your expertise, or is it actually more that you've got a course coming out next week and it's actually about sales? You're wanting to promote this course that you're doing. So you need to think about all of those three aspects for every piece of content that you do and be really, really clear about that. And in everything that you do.
The beginning of what you said in that blast, I love the metaphor, is all about intimacy. There's about intimacy. All of them is the intimacy that live streaming creates and leveraging that. The tactics and the tips, that's about value, making sure you have value in it. So the first part is human interest. It's creating engagement. The second part is the value that you're adding. But I think a real key to what you just said, and this is something that slips by, and often I have to discipline myself, and you might as well. Is that call to action at the end, making sure that every time you go live, what do I want people to do? And who's one of the, she was just on our show a couple of weeks ago here on Just Between You and Me, is our mutual friend, Subi Zimmerman. If you ever watch any of Subi's lives, and she goes live an obnoxious amount of times, but she goes live, but every single time, it's not just, there's always a purpose. I want you to do this. I want you to do this. She never leaves alive without telling her community to do something. And the results speak for themselves. Her growth and her engagement of her community and the passion of her community shines through as a result of that. And she is so disciplined at that. I don't know. I could always use more discipline. I think
I'm the same. I'm the same. It's you kind of like want to congratulate yourself that you've got to almost to the end of the live. You're itching to press that end broadcast button, and the last thing that's on your head is like, what's my call to action? And so I will write down the first things that I need to say and the last things that I need to say, and I'll have bullet points for the middle bit. But it's something happens to our brains when we press that go live button. Our brains go to mush. So actually write your name down just in case you forget that. And then the end thing, write down what your call to action is, because you're going to forget it. And the call to action might just be, if it's just for brand awareness, it might be, I'm going live next week at the same time. Do tune in, or click this button. But the other thing, and this is something that I've been learning the hard way over the past few years, is you've got to be really strategic in terms of what you're going to be doing, not next week in your business, but for the rest of the year. So, for example, I know that next month in August, I'm going to be launching a course on Facebook Live. And so I don't want to start thinking about that the week before I launch. I need to start thinking about that now. And I need to start to mention that in my live shows that, I've got a course that's coming out in August. And then at the end of my broadcast, towards the end, I can say, if you're interested in this, just click on this button to sign up. And I was really, really bad at this in the past. I'm getting better at it. And I hope that over the next year, I'm going to get even better. It doesn't come naturally to all of us. Subi Zimmerman, I'm sure she wasn't, she's an absolute pro at this. I'm sure she wasn't always good at this, although maybe she was.
No, it's her team. It's the team that she has that keeps her on track as far as that goes.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
And that's the thing is when, for all live streamers and for everybody out there that is building their own brand and building their own community, don't beat yourself up if you're not good at something. We've got, Ian and I come from a theater background. We let the singers sing and the dancers dance, and we all can't be everything. And so if this kind of organizational forethought isn't your strength, Either you have to discipline yourself and get a tool, a piece of software that you use that helps you do that, or you have to add a team member that helps you do that. But one way or the other, through technology or through personnel, you can fill in those gaps. But the last thing that we need to do is beat ourselves up or say we're not good at it, because there are areas that we have holes in our skill set. We all have a place. We all have a voice in this particular thing. So there's my motivational talk for the day. That's it.
I love that. That's great.
I know it's out of character for me, and you just pretend it was somebody else.
I'm thinking there's going to be a whole new channel coming from you. You know, Steve's mindset.
The softer side of Steve. Yeah, it could be coming. So let's now switch channels a little bit, and let's talk about repurposing and reapplying the content. So we did talk about how you do your podcast. But the hosts of our sponsors here today is InVideo, and InVideo's tool is such a sweet tool to incorporate into this entire mix, where we take elements of our live stream, we mix in some extra clip media, and we package out some sort of a teaser or a promotional piece as a result of this. Have you started to do that?
Yeah, definitely. These are the bits that we forget about. So I've got what I call the 5 Ps process when it comes to live videos. It sounds a bit rude, but the 5 Ps are, the first thing you need to think about is planning. You need to plan your live streams, and we've talked a little bit about that. Then you need to pre-promote your live streams. Again, we've talked about that. So you can use a tool like InVideo to create little trailer videos, like you've done for this show. These little trailer videos that you can put on all the different social networks out there. Then it's the day that you go live. That's the production side of things, and we've talked about that. But then there are 2 more things, and these are the bits that a lot of people forget about. After you've gone live, you then want to post-promote it. You've gone live, you've now got a piece of evergreen content that you can promote everywhere. So why not use a tool like InVideo to take little snippets out of your live stream? Maybe little if you had a guest on and they said something that was really, really cool, really important, then take that, snip that little bit out and create some videos from that. And then the final thing, which we've covered a little bit, is the repurposing. That's the final one. And this is taking that into a podcast or into other little snippets of content too. So definitely, yeah, this is something I want to spend a lot more time on, because I'm getting busier and busier at the moment, and I just can't. There's a limit to how much content I can create, valuable content that I can create. But from one live stream, I can create all this this pre-promotional material and all this post-promotional material and repurposing as well. Using a tool like InVideo is just going to be really invaluable when it comes to that.
And we tend to look forward at what's next instead of behind us and what we've done.
Oh, yeah.
And it's part of the massive race that is the world of being an online content creator. But here's a couple of thought points to support what you're talking about. The first is, if you've planned out and created a good piece of content like this, I think this live stream today that we're creating, there's some great valuable content, some great insight in it. So we've created this content. It's now our responsibility to shine a light on that content, because the internet gods aren't going to take care of us. They aren't going to say, oh gosh, Ian and Steve are such cool people, we're going to make sure people find this in search no matter what. They don't do that. It's like a child. You do the hard job of birthing the child. Now you got to raise it and get it ready for the world. So you got to tell the world about your content. What Ian's talking about is 2 distinct and different processes that you do post-production. One is creating all of the promotional content. And for us, that promotional content, creating the promotions, is part of our content roadmap for each piece. We have a template that we have for every piece of content we create, that the production, like if the template's this long, the actual live production or the delivery date's here. There's still all of this stuff to go to support that content after we've published it. And it doesn't matter whether it's live content or pre-recorded content. It's all the same. Promotional pieces, like we're talking about using in video, or creating tweets, posts, Instagram posts, Facebook posts that tease people and give them a little nugget and a little taste of what's coming, of what the rest of the content looks like. That is one part of it. And that's actually a lot of work to create. InVideo makes it easy to create the snippets, but deciding on the narrative of the content, that creates some forethought. But the best time to do that is when, Ian? The moment that you edit it, because you can pull this stuff out, you get into the discipline of pulling it out when you edit it. And then the second thing is that long tail valuable product, which is whatever your repurposed content is. In Ian's case, it's a podcast. In our case, from this, it'll be a video and a blog post. They'll create a blog post out of a piece of content like this, but making sure you have those pieces in place to support it. Otherwise, so many people just create a live stream and let it sit on its own, and they don't have the traction and the growth. It's slow. It takes time, but every single metric is going to improve if you honor your content that way.
Very true.
Good. Well, that's it. I think we can just drop it. And that was a mic drop moment. There we go.
we need some sound effects. You know, I should have a round of applause.
I've just done the worst thing that a host can do. Is I took over doing all of the talking, and now you interview me, and which, by the way, would be just fine because I'm going on vacation after today. What are you doing next week?
I don't know.
Could you help us out on Wednesday next week?
I can see, I can see what I can do. I think that should be good. Yeah, let's do that.
So for those, what we're ham-handedly bringing up is next week on Just Between You and Me. Just we're not wrapping things up, but just letting you guys know. Look who's the host. Look who's the host.
How did that happen? That's very quick design.
Yeah, it is. They have good designers at NVIDIA. But I'm going on holiday for the next 3 weeks, and Ian is taking over as in the big chair. In the big chair. Are you up to it?
I think so. Well, I don't think I'm going to be quite as entertaining as you, but I will.
Well, let's flip the script now, and you interview me now for the rest of the. I'm just kidding. Have I been a guest on your podcast? I have.
You have twice, kind of twice, because I did a 3-hour live stream, and you were one of the guests.
Oh, that was on your 1 year anniversary one. Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was fun.
Actually, that will allow us to jump over quickly to the tools, because one of the guests that we had on the same live stream that I did with you was the founder and owner of StreamYard, the guy that founded StreamYard, which is the tool that we're using. So let's transition. Let's get back kind of into practical tools now. And we shared your toolkit of tools you use because somebody asked what tools you use. So let's not spend too much time talking about the hardware, but let's talk a little bit about software for live streaming, because that's a point, man, it's an exciting space. It is an exciting space. There are so many good tools that we have available to us. So we are using StreamYard here. Now, what do you use for your multicasting?
I use Ecamm Live, but then that goes into Restream. So that allows me to broadcast to, I think they support over 30 different destinations. Okay,
so let's put the pieces of the puzzle in place, because nobody's going to, we might have just caused people's eyes to glaze over.
Yeah, instantly. I know. Sorry about
that. Every platform that we have, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, they all will accept a feed from a client, from another tool that can send them what's called an RTMP feed, which is just basically the video feed that they can then capture and they can manage within their platform environment. So their preference, for the most part, is for us to use the native tool. So on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, to use our Facebook or YouTube app, or the on your computer or on your phone to broadcast live. But if you choose not to, you can use a third-party tool to create it. And the benefit of that is you can use a switcher. You can use a tool that will allow you to have multiple sources feeding through. Now, a source for live stream is this. It's a video that we're delivering. It could be, this is a source. Let me just jump over. And so another source could be a pre-recorded video. So if we take a look at when we did this thing here, our promo for beforehand, that's a source. And I switched from this feed here to that feed by clicking the button or by changing the source. Just like bringing up the Slate promo. That's another source being brought to the table. Now, different tools will allow us to switch sources this way. One of the most popular ones that Ian and I use is a tool called Ecamm Live, which is a Mac-only product, which will allow us not only to insert elements such as we just did in graphics and lower thirds and all sorts of stuff, but it'll allow us to actually switch cameras, to have multiple cameras hooked up to our computer at the same time and switch back and forth between them. And it's just a kick-ass product. Another thing it does is allows us to hook up a DSLR which is, you're not using a DSLR, are you now?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Through Ecamm Live. So you're
Yeah.
actually broadcasting through Ecamm Live. So it allows us to bring all of those things together and then feed them. And in the world of live television that I come from, that's basically a truck. There's if you're a football game or a hockey game, there's a truck outside that has a whole bunch of computers inside that are all wired into the cameras and into the tape machines and into the announcers' mics. And there's a person that sits there and switches, and they choose the source. And you have your program feed, which is what you're sending out, and then you have your live feed, which you're sending out, and you have all this other stuff that you're staging in order to have it ready, so you can go take camera 1, take camera 2, take camera 3. That's the fun deep end of the pool for live streaming. Ian uses Ecamm Live and then creates a virtual camera feed from it, and so that anything he creates in Ecamm Live, he can send out to his stream. So that's how he does it. Now, how do you get that stream? Because Ecamm Live will hook up with Facebook Live or with YouTube Live natively inside it. How do you get that stream to multiple sources?
So actually, Ecamm Live will integrate with Restream. So you can connect, if you sign up for Restream, you can connect Ecamm Live with that. And then you just set up all the broadcasts, all the destinations within Restream.
I was setting you up for a more base level introduction thing. Restream is a tool that will allow you to stream to multiple platforms at the same time. It's basically a feed service that takes and redistributes the signal. Okay, so now go on.
Well, yeah, it might be good to just talk about there's two different ways of doing this. So the old school method was you'd have to have a beast of a computer to do this, and software that allowed you to send one stream to Facebook and at the same time send one stream to YouTube at the same time. But the amount of power that your computer would need to do that is quite considerable, and you have to have a bit of a beast of an internet connection to do that.
So individual stream,
because you're doing that individually. And so what Restream is, it's kind of like it's a cloud-based service. So what you do is you send, instead of sending your stream out to YouTube and Facebook separately, you send your stream to them, and then they will broadcast it out to all the different places that you want to go live to. So it's like a middleman that allows you to do that for you. So it's one extra step, but it allows you to do that quite easily. Now, and the other important thing, of course, to say is that it also, and this is why I love this setup, is that you can monitor the comments from all those different platforms at the same time as well, because that's really important. If you're going to broadcast to YouTube and Facebook,
Restream doesn't just feed out, but it also pulls back all of the comments, and those then get resolved within Ecamm Live. So you actually see them in the Ecamm Live dashboard.
Yes.
Now, the one challenge that I had before using Restream was I could schedule only on Facebook Live, but I could not schedule YouTube Live, I believe, with it. I couldn't schedule multiple events from within Ecamm.
So
is that still the case?
It's the other way around. You can schedule to YouTube, but you can't schedule to Facebook. But I believe in the next week or so, that is Facebook scheduling is coming. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because that's the missing piece in my puzzle. Once that gets added, I think this is I'm so excited about the setup that I've got, because it basically does everything that I want it to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a second option to Ian's way, there's a slightly simpler way, which is to use a tool like StreamYard, which we're using right now. Now, StreamYard is like a combination of some of the things that Ecamm brings and some of the things that Restream brought. It allows you to stream to multiple platforms at the same time, and it allows you to switch back and forth basically between sources, not as many sources as does Ecamm. So we're actually doing this entire broadcast today from StreamYard. But StreamYard will allow you to schedule a Facebook Live and a YouTube Live at the same time, and to create those posts so that they're scheduled and ready to go. And it costs about the same as Restream, depending on how many streams you're going to. I think that StreamYard is $29 for 2 streams and $49 for 5 or something like that. But it does allow you to do the same process. And I find it a little bit. I would rather use Ecamm, but it's easier to teach people to use StreamYard.
Yeah, there's another thing. The Restream have also got something called Restream Studio, which is
which I haven't tried yet.
Thing. Yeah, and so that allows you to do it in the web. So it's very, very simple. You can bring in guests and stuff. They're adding new features all the time, so that's definitely worth checking out too.
Yeah. So there's no best practices here. It's again building your own system. I believe one of the reasons that Ian probably likes to use Ecamm Live as well is just because it really challenges your imagination to figure out something it can't do because they've done a terrific job of building out. So there's a variety. So you can start by streaming just using the native app. Once you're ready to step up to the next level, choosing a tool like Restream or StreamYard gives you the next layer up that allows you to stream to multiple platforms, bring in guests, and to do it very effectively, which you can almost never do with the native app. You can almost never include guests, although I think maybe Facebook does now, but who knows? When was the last time you used the Facebook app? I don't know.
Facebook they took the feature away to bring in guests.
Oh, did they?
On the smartphone app. But then they brought it back apparently a few weeks back, and I haven't had time to test it. But yeah, it's like what they're doing,
I kind of just had a moment of embarrassment realizing I don't even know what it does anymore because we haven't used it for so long, and nor are we likely to use it again anytime in the near future. Yeah. So there's options there. So there's Restream. There's a couple of others too. There's Be Live. There's a variety of other tools that you can all look at, and there's fan bases for each one. So they all do a good job. Bottom line is the technology should not get in your way. And with a basic webcam and microphone setup, you can do a hell of a good live stream.
Yeah.
Just everybody can. Let me check my notes here because we're getting short on time, Ian. And time has flown. I don't have any other. I think that's everything. Do you have a sweet spot for how large you like your live streams to be? Like what's a good number of people?
Well, in terms of how many people watching live,
yeah,
I try not to think about that number. That number that you see can actually
throw you
do
off.
Two things. If you have loads and loads, if you have hundreds of people watching live, that can put you off. And if you have like 0 or 3 or something, then that can put you off. But what I try and teach myself to do is to focus on the individuals watching it. So I know this is kind of a cop-out answer, but I think it is really important because I'm more interested in like 5 to 10 or 12 people watching, and they're all really passionate people in my community and are asking great questions. I'm more interested in that than having loads and loads and loads and loads. But okay, the honest answer to your question is I'm always looking for more people to watch my live shows. So I mean, if I have 30 plus, I feel I'm doing really well. But of course, it depends on your community.
Yeah, what your goals. And I'm thinking of for the value of people watching and the engagement. There's a minimum number. If you are watching a live stream and there's only a few people watching, you feel like there might not be value because of social proof. One of the things that's kind of interesting is as you grow, and I found this on my webinars especially, there's a sweet spot for the number of people that you have, which if you exceed it, actually becomes detrimental to the quality of the broadcast, I believe. And that is, I love the fact that we can look at all of the comments as they're going and engage with comments and make people feel validated in a live stream. I think the beauty of a live stream is that it's not a broadcast, but it's a conversation for the most part. The more that we incorporate others. Once you hit, I think you're right. Yeah, once you hit 300 people or so in any live format, the chat goes by so fast that it becomes too difficult for you to validate the people within it. And at that point, there it becomes a different beast. It becomes an entirely different animal. And how you look at creating your content, how you look at your engagement has to change at that point there because you become a show as opposed to a kind of an iterative experience. And so just kind of food for thought.
No, that's definitely an important point. And actually something that you said when you came on my podcast is that it's, if you have the budget for this and you can, then get somebody to come in and produce the show so you can focus on delivering it. But the other thing is, if you are starting to get loads and loads of comments, get somebody to come in and moderate those comments. And if there's a comment that you think that you should be looking at, then they can ping you and let you know about that comment. And that's really,
having
really
a back channel. So you've got your main channel of your chat happening, but always having Slack open on your other computer or on your phone so your team can let you know what's going on and to inform you of things. Crucial as far as kind of technique goes. But but you're going to be teaching all that in an upcoming course, right?
I am.
Tell me about the course.
Well, I'm just putting the finishing touches on it. It's basically everything that you need to know about Facebook Live and launching a successful live video show on Facebook, including a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about. It's about the 5 Ps. It's also going to talk about confidence as well. So, and warming up your voice and your body, because that's something that I don't see that many people talking about. We can get so focused on the tech and the content, but actually, how about the mindset and actually getting your body and your voice ready for your live as well? So it's going to go through absolutely everything. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be great.
Good stuff. So, Ian, I'm going to get you to do this. Normally now I would send you to the green room. I would thank you very much, and I would send you to the green room, and I would then promote next week's show. But I'm going to be sitting down with a beer on my deck, looking at my boat in the water next week. So how about if you promote next week's show?
I can do. Yes. Have you got the? Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. I'm next week. I'm very excited about this because we've got Kelly Noble Mirabella coming on to talk about Facebook Messenger bots, and this is exciting because I want to love bots, but for some reason I always have this blockage with bots, and so I am going to ask Kelly loads of questions. I would love to know from you if you've got any questions about bots, and we can really dig deep and get into the basics and also a bit more of the advanced stuff with Messenger bots. So that's next week. I can't wait.
I'm so glad it's you doing bots and not me, because I'm not such a fan of bots, and it comes across when I do stuff, I get kind of sour. So you deal with Kelly. See, they're great tools. They're great tools, but I can't fake it anymore. I can't.
Well, it's funny. I'm actually I'm going to be hiring somebody to help me with bots, because although I totally see the power of them, and I can see the advantage of them, I personally have a mental blockage with them. I haven't been able to get excited by them, but now that I'm working with this person, my eyes are starting to open. So I'm excited about talking to Kelly next week. It's gonna be great.
Well, you've gone to the dark side, Ian Anderson Gray, but good luck with that. We're doing the same. We're hiring somebody to help us with it as well. So I'm going to send you the green room now. I'll wrap things up, but good luck next week.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks so much, Ian.
Thanks, everyone.
Stick around. Okay, folks, that is it for this week's show. As we said, Steve's off on holiday for the next couple of weeks. I'm talking about myself in the third person here. Thanks so much to our hosts at InVideo. As we mentioned earlier on, an incredible tool for creating repurposed content. It is a game changer that we use to great effect, and you will as well, should you choose to embark on your own InVideo journey. Again, thanks to Ian Anderson Gray. His links are in the description, so you can follow up with him. Join him next week with as he talks messenger bots. And I will be enjoying myself on holiday for the next few weeks. So until I return, have fun storming a castle.